now on WDRB News.
A murder suspect leads several police agencies on a high-speed chase from Lawrenceburg all the way to Louisville. What police say the suspect did and why he isn't being named.
You need rain, I've got that rain, and I want to talk about when to expect it in your area and how much. Next.
Release the transcripts!
A cry for justice.
Say her name!
Breonna Taylor's family speaking for the first time since the grand jury decision. The one promise they say they're keeping. Heartbreak, outrage, and calls for action in downtown Louisville today.
It's the first time we're hearing from Breonna Taylor's family after the grand jury decided not to press charges against LMPD officers for her death. WDRB's Gilbert Corsi shares the remarks.
Heartbreak, bewildered, outrage. Those words used to describe the reaction here at Jefferson Square Park to the grand jury's decision in the Breonna Taylor case.
Say her name!
Breonna Taylor's mother walked hand in hand with loved ones into Jefferson Square Park Friday to the memorial dedicated to her daughter. But no words from Tamika Palmer, just grief. Instead, Taylor's aunt read a statement on behalf of her mom.
I never had faith in Daniel Cameron to begin with.
Amen.
I knew he was too inexperienced to deal with a job of this caliber. I knew he had already chosen to be on the wrong side of the law.
This was the family speaking publicly for the first time since the grand jury's decision.
I was reassured Wednesday of why I have no faith in the legal system, in the police, in the law that are not made to protect us black and brown people.
And as they expressed outrage,
Release the transcripts!
we heard a loud recurring theme from their legal team.
What did Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron present to the grand jury? Did he present any evidence on Breonna Taylor's behalf?
Victim.
Or did he make a unilateral decision to put his thumb on the scales of justice?
The grand jury returned no indictments for Taylor's death. Rather, 3 counts of wanton endangerment against fire detective Brett Hankeson for stray bullets hitting a neighbor's apartment.
This is a tragedy, and sometimes the criminal law is not adequate to respond to a tragedy.
When pressed about whether he made a recommendation to the grand jury or whether manslaughter charges were presented, this was Cameron's response.
I won't get into the specifics again of the proceedings themselves are secret, but what I will say is that our team walked them through every homicide offense and also presented all of the information that was available.
Taylor supporters want the full transcript to see exactly what information the grand jury had.
Tell the whole truth, including you, Daniel Cameron. Did you make the decision or did the grand jury make the decision?
This case helped ignite a conversation in Louisville and throughout the country about the intersection between race and law enforcement in a manner that hasn't been seen in decades. Leaders of Until Freedom say protests and activism will not stop.
And until those officers are fired from this department, I promise you, we will continue to make these streets hot.
And I want to show you one of the final moments here at Jefferson Square Park, releasing butterflies, saying Breonna Taylor's name. As organizers say, their fight for justice soars on. Gilbert Corsi, WDRB News.
Now, there is still a separate and ongoing FBI investigation looking into the warrant itself and whether there were any civil rights violations in the raid that killed Breonna Taylor. We want to go out to downtown Louisville tonight, where protesters again are marching for the 3rd night after that decision came down.
And this has been happening for more than 120 days across our city. Let's go live right now to WDRB's Chad Mills. He's in the thick of it as usual. Chad?
A lot of protesters out on the streets of Louisville tonight. I want to show you the direction in which they're traveling. You're looking south. You're looking down 2nd Street. They are approaching KFC Yum Center right now. I heard some of them mention that they want to continue their protest there. This march started about 15 minutes ago from Jefferson Square. A good number of people. We've seen some decent crowds over the past 2 nights since the decision came down, but I might say this crowd is a little bigger than in previous nights. Just looking at the front of the crowd, you certainly see a lot of the regular local protesters, but there are certainly some new faces in there as well. Until Freedom, you see the big purple banner. That's kind of been the imagery they've been using. So certainly they are in the front of this protest line as well. Listening in, it sounds like they might stop at this intersection, which is Main and 2nd, to continue their protest. Of course, this being the third night of protests since the decision came down. What we've seen so far has been focused on their message of, trying to bring racial equity and equality to the city of Louisville, demanding justice in the Breonna Taylor case. They passed the LMPD blockade a few blocks back, where cars are allowed to enter the blockaded downtown portion. LMPD standing outside their cars. Didn't seem there was any shouting or anything like that. Most of the protesters just marched on by. Listening in here. Trying to hear what he's saying, but it doesn't sound like he's giving direction. He instead is pointing to this sign right over here, Hobie. Oh, excuse me. This Commonwealth of Kentucky history sign that talks about the slave trading in Louisville. Stopping here to reflect on this sign, read it to the people in this crowd as they pass this landmark on Main Street as part of their protest. This guy right here kind of wiping his hand on the sign as he walks past. Again, for point of reference, if you look right over there, KFC Yum, 2nd Street Bridge in that area, it seems to be that's the area that they are heading, but for now they're just kind of pausing here on 2nd Street to figure out what they want to do next. Looks like they're saying, if we don't get justice, we will shut it down, which is a chant they've used time and time again over the past 121 days. Again, this kind of being an earlier protest than in some of the past couple of nights. Things seem to get going a little later than the time it is right now, right at 6 o'clock. This march left Jefferson Square and protesters made their way to this intersection. We're going to stand by and continue to follow them here, see where they go next, what they do next, and bring you updates throughout the night. We are, of course, on Facebook Live right now as well, if you'd like to tune into that. We'll send it back to you guys in the studio.
All right, Chad, thank you. A different kind of card march today at Cardinal Stadium. The U of L men's basketball team organized a march they say is for Breonna Taylor and an effort to unite the community. Head coach Chris Mack joined his players and other participants for the downtown demonstration.
This isn't political, and I feel bad for some people that want to politicize it. For me, this is about black people's lives, and whether you want to talk about the organization or what, it's about making sure that people in this world are seen as equal.
Athletes from U of L's other sports also joined in on the march.
Real quickly, I want to let you know about something we just got into the newsroom. Part of the 2nd Street Bridge is closed down right now from Indiana into Kentucky. That is closed down. Of course, we just saw moments ago our Chad Mills was standing right there where those protesters were gathered. We'll keep our eye on that and let you know the latest as we get it. Kentucky State Representative Attica Scott calls her arrest during last night's protests ridiculous.
In Breonna's name, neither I or my teenage daughter, who was arrested with me, would try to burn down a library that our people need. Right. So I just want you to know those are some ridiculous charges that were levied against us.
LMPD arrested Scott and her daughter last night and charged them with unlawful assembly, rioting, and failure to disperse. Police say they were part of a group that caused damage to several locations, including setting fire to the main library branch. A WDRB news crew covering the protest saw one person, not a group, smash a library window and throw a flare inside the building. Protesters condemn that person's actions. In a statement, the library president and vice president say Representative Scott has consistently been a vocal supporter of the library and has been an ally through many battles. They say they've seen no proof that Scott had anything to do with the flare being thrown into the library. LMPD explained why some people who may not have actually caused any damage were still arrested.
Under Kentucky's riot statute, anyone who is part of a group causing damage or riotous behavior is subject to the charge of rioting. It does not require an individual to actually have participated in the specific destructive act.
Scott pre-filed the bill known as Breonna's Law. It would ban no-knock warrants across Kentucky and require police to announce themselves before executing a search warrant. It would also require them to use body cameras.
The city of Louisville will be under a curfew for the third night in a row. WDRB's Stefan Johnson explains how that curfew is being enforced. Stefan?
The curfew takes effect at 9 o'clock tonight. So in the next 3 hours, it means that the streets of Louisville, most of them, should look like this.
As a reminder, the curfew is in effect from 9 p.m. to 6:30 a.m.
Wednesday, Mayor Greg Fisher signed an executive order for a countywide curfew. The curfew does not apply to people commuting to work, houses of worship for service, or seeking medical attention or taking someone else to get that attention. It does include restaurants, bars, and protests. A few nights ago, some working members of the media were even arrested for violating the curfew.
My editor-in-chief actually called Louisville PD. They actually even stepped up to me and said, hey, you are accredited media, you're here with Shelby, and then they still, decided that they wanted us to spend a night in jail.
Around 26 people were arrested for various violations related to the protests. Charges include failure to disperse, unlawful assembly, curfew violations, and riot first degree.
Again, that curfew starts tonight at 9 o'clock and ends tomorrow morning at 6:30 and has been extended through the weekend, so it officially ends on Monday morning at 6:30. Live in downtown Louisville, I'm Stefan Johnson, WDRB News.
Stefan, thank you. Expected protests are causing TARC to change its bus service through the weekend. From tonight through Saturday, buses will stop running at 7 p.m. TARC says because of the changing locations of the demonstrations, its drivers can't safely move around the city. Buses will run on their regular schedules today, tomorrow, and Sunday until service is suspended at 7 o'clock each day. As of now, buses are expected to return to their normal service schedule on Monday.
To some other news tonight, a high-speed chase ends in Louisville and a young murder suspect is behind bars. As WDRB's Dalton Godby explained, several police agencies chased the suspect for more than 50 miles at speeds of over 100 miles an hour.
Kentucky State Police says the chase started right here in Anderson County after a juvenile killed a 33-year-old woman and a 12-year-old girl inside this Lawrenceburg home. And neighbors tell me the juvenile responsible was a family member.
Shelby County responded on a vehicle pursuit, requested 8th Division, I-64 west of the county line. He's a murder suspect.
A high-speed chase through 3 counties at speeds over 100 miles an hour.
Gray blue pickup. They're setting up spikes at the 36. County units to assist.
A juvenile murder suspect leading it all.
8.9, they were past the 35-mile marker. They were pressing into the county line on I-64.
KSP says it began in Lawrenceburg after a juvenile murdered 33-year-old Tiffany No and 12-year-old Brooke Goggin at this home on Corinth Road.
This scene resulted in 2 deceased individuals, and as a result of that, there's been one person arrested in relation to this investigation.
It happened sometime Thursday evening and came to a halt just after 10 when officers from several police agencies arrested the juvenile on the Watterson near Taylorsville Road. The suspect led police through Anderson and Shelby counties before finally being stopped in Louisville.
State Police Post 12 wants to protect the integrity of this investigation, so there is evidence still to be gathered, neighborhood canvases, witnesses to be talked to.
KSP tight-lipped about the details, but neighbors tell WDRB the suspect was the son of the 33-year-old and the brother of the 12-year-old. Other neighbors say it was a complete shock.
I mean, that's horrible. That's horrible. And to think 33 years old and you 12-year-old, I mean, that's terrible. You know, my goodness, they're just both beginning their life.
An autopsy scheduled for the 2 who were killed and the juvenile suspect in custody, police say. Details slim on what led to the killings and how they happened. And with so many questions, a small community is turning to a higher power for comfort.
It's terrible, and my heart and my prayers goes out to that family.
If you have any additional information about what happened, please call the Kentucky State Police immediately. Reporting in Anderson County, Dalton Godby, WDRB News.
Let's take another live look at downtown Louisville. Right now you can see And that box on the left-hand side of your screen, the protesters are headed east on Main Street right now. And as you can see, there is a healthy amount of protesters right now, dozens and dozens.
Absolutely. I'd say even hundreds by that shot we just saw. One of the largest crowds we have seen marching in downtown Louisville this week. We will bring you another live report shortly.
Hoosiers, if a problem stops you from voting, don't worry.
This is an important safeguard that voters must have.
Long lines, equipment failures, and not enough ballots. The ruling a judge just made so that everyone has a chance to vote.
And an 89-year-old pizza driver gets an unexpected surprise, the delivery he got from a customer for his kindness.
How do I ever say thank you? I don't know what to say.
We're back, and it would appear things are heating up a bit with protesters and police. LMPD just showing up a large show of presence there for the police department seconds ago in downtown Louisville, not far from Slugger Field.
That's right. Let's get right out to WDRB's Chad Mills. We can see those blue and red police lights behind you, Chad.
Yes, so we have flashbangs, so we're going to move out of the way. Sorry about that. LMPD moving in south. That's another flashbang right there. We can't go this way. LMPD, let's regroup here for just a minute. We're going to head back toward the Nulu area, toward the Campbell Street area where we just were, because that's the only option. As we were just saying, they'd encountered LMPD a couple of times on this march, but LMPD kind of let them keep marching in the street. When they turned the corner here, moving out of Nulu toward Main Street, they saw LMPD under I-65. LMPD now moving back now. Protesters confused. They say that we were peaceful, we were nonviolent, even though they were in the streets. And so now they're confused as to why LMPD is moving in. That is what people are saying on the streets. LMPD now has them blocked from getting back to downtown or toward downtown, at least here on Main Street. We'll see what the protesters eventually do. The leader of the protest, so to speak, Chris Wells, has the bullhorn. You're looking right in his direction. He's trying to, he's directing people where to go. He actually wants a wall of media members in front of them. But anyway, they had marched through Nulu. They'd marched down Market, then they turned as if to go back to Jefferson Square and downtown. But then they were encountered by this wall of red and blue lights under the I-65 overpass where LMPD is out in full force right now. People kind of ran up to the front of the line saying, hey, we're walking. Can we keep walking? LMPD then forming the line. And it looked like at that point people were trying to turn onto Hancock to go back over to Market Street to get back downtown that way. That is when we heard those flashbangs, looked over and saw another line of LMPD moving in, blocking their approach south from here. And just looking behind, I see the SRT vehicle. I see one of the armored personnel carriers, and I see more blue and red lights in that direction. But you see, this is a thick line of LMPD right here. They do not appear to want the protesters to go back to downtown, at least not from this approach. A couple of those big flashbangs, that's another way to say one of those big percussion pops that LMPD fires over the crowd to kind of let them know that they're moving in and they mean business, and protesters kind of accordingly move back. At least some of them did. There are still several, 4 or 5 dozen of them in this area. Again, all of this happening at the intersection of East Main and South Hancock as protesters were making their way back toward downtown, perhaps back toward Jefferson Square. You can see a couple of them still in this area as LMPD. We have movement from LMPD. Hold on, I think we have an arrest over in this area. We'll see if we can get a little bit closer. Maybe it was just some shuffling on the line, kind of hard to say. Trying to look through the crowd. It does look like they might have someone. Can't say for sure. Yes, I'm kind of crouching down here and I can see it looks like there is someone being taken into custody. Someone just fell in front of us. It looks like that might just be kind of a conflict between protesters, but yeah, LMPD kind of pinning in this intersection on 3 sides, pushing protesters, or trying to push the protesters back east of here down Main Street.
Do not
And Pastor Finley has the bullhorn now, telling people to stay away from the cops. Pastor Finley telling them this is a non-violent protest. We do not want violence, he's telling the protesters. And it seems that his voice is a loud one because it is working with some of the protesters. He's telling the crowd, we're on the way back to the park. It seems they just don't know how to get back to the park at this point in time. And now we hear LAPD declaring this an unlawful assembly. And so we're going to get back just a little bit in case there is a shuffle here in just a second. But again, them telling, and we're going to move back just a little bit. But again, telling people that this is now an unlawful assembly, telling them to move back or face arrest.
We just was marching.
The lady in front of me says, we were just marching. We were just marching. So a lot of people just kind of confused as to why this is happening. Yes, they were marching in the street, but the protest leaders saying that this was nothing but a nonviolent march through part of downtown, through part of Nulu, and heading back to Jefferson Square. LMPD, though, not playing around, moving in full force here to cut off protesters' approach back to downtown. Again, all of this happening kind of just on the eastern side of I-65. And now I see some of the protesters gesture this way, meaning they plan to start moving down the sidewalk, back east, back the way they were coming just a few minutes ago. But a few protesters kind of remain, as a couple of them lob insults and yell at these LMPD officers who are forming the roadblock here. Katrina Helmer also standing by. I'm looking right at her. She's a little closer to the line. Katrina, what are you seeing where you're at?
Yeah, Chad, like you were saying, a bit of a chaotic situation as we came up into this area, met a line of police officers. We could kind of see them as we were walking up and then approached down the side. It looks like a few people eventually took a knee kind of in front of the line of police officers, but now we kind of hear everyone saying, get down and onto the sidewalk. They're asking media to stay in the center. And actually, if I go ahead and relate, we have a scuffle with police. They're pushing a little bit in. If you're looking straight ahead, unclear what exactly